and I'm an expert in innovation, and in particular in the area of management innovation, helping companies to put in place new management practices. Most people think about innovation, they think about product innovation, or they think about technology innovation. And those are the ones that we see every day. Management innovation is about changing the way that we work. It's about looking for new and better ways of working to help companies organize themselves and structure themselves more effectively. So it's harder to see, but it's actually really important because it's the basis on which a lot of other innovations flow. Every big company has an existing way of working, which just about works. I mean, most companies, work reasonably well, but they can almost always work better. Now, the problem is that when someone like myself comes along and says, we need to innovate how we work, there's usually quite a lot of resistance because they say, well, we don't know how to change the way we work because we've always worked in this way. And so I have to work quite hard to persuade them that the current way of working is not working very well, that there are problems that they need to overcome. And I also have to give them some ideas about alternative ways of working that can be more effective. So, for example, being more open to ideas outside the boundaries of the company, getting rid of their traditional budgeting processes because those processes are slowing them down. So I have to work quite hard to persuade them that changes are needed. So we all know when a product innovation works because the company sells more products. That's very easy. To measure management innovation requires, first of all, a slightly longer time frame because any changes in how we work will typically take 2 or 3 or 5 years to be successful. And it also requires measurement of essentially intangible things. So, for example, making employees more productive, making them more empowered, making them more engaged. All of those things are essential parts of management innovation because we're trying to really just change the culture of an organization. So we can find ways of measuring those things, but they're not usually measured directly in money. So typically what we have to do is to find intermediate measures around, for example, employee engagement. And then we have to say, keep on doing this, and then maybe over 4 or 5 or 6 years, we will start to see those changes work their way through to the bottom line. So it's typically a very long-term process, which of course is why it's difficult. I'm an academic. I write, I research, I teach my students. The foundations of everything I do is based on strong theoretical principles, but our deep understanding of how the real world works. And for me, the two sides complement each other. So for me to write good academic articles, I have to understand the world of practice. Fortunately, it runs in both directions, and I am able to take those ideas and I'm able to then translate them into a way to help companies. Now that's difficult because you've got to learn to speak 2 different languages, if you see what I mean. And you've got to find a way of ensuring that the 2 sides fit together. But that's what I focus on. I deliberately try to play both worlds and to see the links between them. It's always important to bear in mind when we're talking about management innovation that it sort of happens at 2 levels. There is the practices, the day-to-day things that people do differently, and then there are the words that are used to describe it. So you take a classic case like total quality management. That was a fundamental change in how people worked on production lines. But there was also a conversation around the principles and the theory that was written down. And in order for management innovations to be successful over the long term, we need both. We need both definitive changes in how people work, but we also need a language to transfer that idea to others. The most successful management innovations are the ones that have a clear theory associated with them. Otherwise, people don't know what it is that they've created. So the 2 parts don't always work together, but when they do, that is when they are most powerful. So over the years, my own understanding of how companies work has evolved significantly. So a lot of ideas I held maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I have revised those since then. So for me, one of the most insightful things I can bring to the world of management thinking is actually to figure out that some of my early ideas were wrong. So I have some core beliefs which have not changed about the power of managers, of executives to change things themselves. But the ways in which they do that have changed significantly. For example, I used to believe much more in the power of technology. Nowadays, I realize it's much more about people, and it's about culture, and it's about the softer sides of things. So for me, it's a constant journey of discovery in terms of how companies can work more effectively. Management thinking in Europe versus other parts of the world. There's no doubt that most of the big ideas still come from America. They just do. I don't like that, but it's a fact. And indeed, the Europeans who have made the most influence, typically they got their PhD in America. Not all, but most of them. But having said that, Europe is still actually quite an interesting place for good ideas to emerge because we are so heterogeneous. Because the way that things work in France is not the same as the UK, is not the same as Scandinavia, is not the same as Germany. So I am always fascinated doing my research in different countries in Europe because we see such different cultures close to each other. And of course in Europe we've also got these very long traditions of successful companies with very, very different backgrounds. And so we actually have a much richer sort of set of phenomena, set of companies. We've got old companies, we've got state-owned companies, we've got startups than America. And if we just finish the story, if you go to the rest of the world, if you go to Asia and emerging economies, they are all still playing catch-up. And what I mean by that is that at the moment, if you go to China, they don't have their own theories of management. What they're doing is they're taking European and American theories and they are employing them as a way of catching up. Now, 50 years from now, even 20 years from now, there will be China-specific theories. There will be a Chinese theory of management, but we have not seen that yet. So I think Europe has got a very fertile set of practices that we can all learn from, that we must become more effective at telling to the rest of the world. The beauty of management innovation as a concept is that it's really about any executive, whether they're the chief executive, whether they're a middle manager, taking responsibility for creating an organization that can get the most out of people. So it's not just about saving money. It can be about creating entirely new markets. It can be about helping people just to have more fulfilling, exciting work experiences. So for me, it is a deliberately flexible concept that says, if I'm running a company or a division or a department, I can get the most out of the people working for me. I can figure out ways of harnessing their talents, and of course that's an attractive prospect because it's much more than just making money. It's really about making organizations worthwhile places to spend our time.